the meeting. 6 o'clock. It's sitting in all that traffic at Roseley, it's terrible. Okay. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if it does go off, just please leave by the stairs into the top right-hand corner of the car park. Right, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Hobson, substitute Councillor Donnelly, Councillor Purdy, substitute Councillor Atkins, and Councillor Sutton. Apologies.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Does that find a move? Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Does that find a seconder? Councillor Murphy, thank you. Public participation. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes. Can we vote on the minutes? All those in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Public participation. We have one speaker, Mr. Dobbs. You also submitted some questions, didn't you, Mr. Dobbs? And I assume you've had the responses.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Yes, I do.
You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, my comments and questions concern item 8, Ashbourne AQMA updating report. Although I'm pleased that an updating report on the action plan has been included as an agenda item for this meeting, I'm disappointed to note that it seems to be little more than a diary of meetings with reference to reports that are not included in the pack and some impenetrable acronyms. However, I understand that the same 11 actions that were in what I call the Marsden report for the County Council, published some 4 months ago, they're included in the current draft of the action plan, and I'll refer to those later. So my first question is this: at what date will this committee and the wider public have sight of the proposed action plan? My interpretation of diffusion tube data for 2022 shows that NOx levels on Buxton Road remain above the action threshold indicated in the 2021 detailed assessment, with one location, new in January 2022, reaching an adjusted value of NOx of over 50 micrograms per cubic metre, and the legal limit is 40. So you can see that we clearly have illegal levels of NOx currently that the apportionment exercise attributes largely to LGV and HGV. And so my next question is this: which of the 11 actions in the draft plan does this council believe will have a significant effect over the next 4 years in reducing NOx levels at the top of Buxton Hill? That's the new test location, which is just outside the Bowling Green pub. And my final question is, what evidence supports this prediction? Now, you'll probably have seen, if you've looked at public participation on the web and the documents for this meeting, that the replies to those questions have been published. So I'd like to add an additional comment. I can't ask any more questions, but I would like to say this. I hope that councillors, now you've had a chance to read those responses to my 3 questions, will believe that they do not really seriously address my questions. I hope that some of you here will be able to ask pertinent questions in item 8. The residents of Ashbourne, particularly those that live on Buxton Road, do want to be reassured that this council actually does have a plan, and a plan that can work in an appropriate timescale. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. Right, moving on. Item 4, interest. Does anyone have any interest to declare? No? Okay, thank you. Item 5, questions pursuant to rule of procedure, number 15. No? Okay, thank you. Item 6, levelling up fund round 2-bid submission. Steve, I think this one's yours, isn't it?
It is, thank you very much, Chair. And introducing it, I'm just pointing out to members that if this £15 million bid does come off, it will be a very significant capital grant for the District Council and indeed for the district. And I'd like to start, if I may, by thanking members for their contributions, both at previous committees and in the 2 member workshops that have been held. It's a result of one of those contributions that the bid title has been selected, and it's now been baked into the document, so I do hope you like it, and certainly I hope Councillor Archer does, because it came from one of his, and that's Ashbourne Reborn. It's slightly a simpler version. It's one that's only got 2 words, and we hope that that will be digestible for the government and the officials in government who will have to read this. Since the member workshop a few weeks ago, further work has been going on. We've nailed down some of the costings and done more work on benefit cost ratios and various sections that must go into the form. And in doing that, I'm very grateful to my colleagues across the council who've been involved in that, and that does include colleagues from planning, from legal, from finance, as well as estates, our clean and green team, parking, climate change, equalities, and of course economic development. So it has been very much a cross-council effort, but I'm particularly also grateful to the wider bid team, Michael Rich, Latham's Architects, Bentley Project Managements, and Amion Consultants, and Thomas Listers, and others who've supported them. If it hadn't been for them, we certainly wouldn't have got to this point. But I think it's very pertinent, members, that you know, hear from me that I'm also incredibly grateful to the community of Ashbourne, and there's certain organisations there who've been really, really helpful in kicking this process off and helping move it forward. Ashbourne Town Team, Ashbourne Methodist Church, Ashcom, Ashbourne Town Council, of course, but also Derbyshire County Council. All of those have been absolutely crucial to getting us to this point. So if you will approve putting a bid forward, we will hopefully get a response from the government in October, November. So that is some time to wait, but we won't be wasting that time. In that period, we will be continuing to work on the bid, so that even though that work is at risk, we hope to be in a position when an announcement is made in the autumn to be able to start delivering the projects as soon as possible after that. Chairman, you know, there are final details being worked on the bid. That will be going on right up until the line, Tuesday or maybe Wednesday next week. The government insists that the bid has to be submitted on its online portal. That currently isn't working, so it will be very much up until the line. And you know, I know that my colleagues in the bid team are, as we speak, are still working on some of the sections of the bid. Just finally, Chairman, you know, I would ask members to look out for the full bid when it is published. We'll make sure that members do get a link and all the details, and please wish the bid luck. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, members, we'll move to questions. Councillor Burfoot.
Thank you, Chair. Well, obviously, like other members, I wish the bid well and hope it's successful. But I suppose it's a scheme that is understandable in terms of its extent within the town centre, but there are numerous sort of contrasting and very ambitious projects included in the bid. And it's difficult to argue, I suppose, that all of them have to be implemented at the same time. So my first question is, can the government funding body and assessors approve submissions in part? In other words, if they think perhaps the bid is too expensive, can they reduce it and offer you, say, 2/3 of what you want for items, whatever, within the application? Second question is, given and I don't like to say this, but it's a relatively poor standard of street cleansing, including weeding and litter removal and sweeping in all our towns, and possibly villages as well. How will this problem, and it's reported by traders in Ashbourne in the presentation, in the application actually as well, and we constantly get questions from people in Matlock about that issue, can it be addressed without substantially more clean and green staff and extra district-wide resources for that department? And there's quite a bit of new landscaping proposed, which is obviously very impressive, but can it be maintained? That is the question I'd like to ask. The third question is, in view of the permanent challenge of non-stop traffic and pollution, which Mr Dobbs has alerted us to on many occasions, and the obviously pollution, the NOx pollution on Compton Street, Diggs Street, St John Street and Buxton Road. And funny enough, if you look at the pictures in the submission, you'll see that the traffic seems to be cleverly omitted from certainly one of the computerised visual impressions I saw of the street enhancement proposals. So how will this be addressed both during these extensive works that are proposed and following completion of the project if it gets approved? And finally, tree planting. Obviously, I've always been concerned about this sort of thing. In order to fulfil our ambitions in terms of the corporate plan and so on, in terms of extra tree planting within the district, I don't think what's being proposed, it's like four trees on the Buxton Road side of the marketplace, 6 trees in the Shrovetide Walk area, and that's about it really, I think. Obviously protection of some of the existing trees, or most of the existing trees, but I wonder if in order to reduce the potential for pollution affecting pedestrians in the marketplace, for instance, would it be a good idea to experiment or suggest that pleached limes or beech, or even beech, to demarcate the road from the highway from the car park would be a reasonable idea. It's something that's used on the continent quite a lot, especially in Holland and Belgium, where I've seen it extensively. And it does tend to be quite effective in screening pedestrians from traffic. So I think that's something that should be explored. Just in terms of climate change adaptation, apart from anything else, and absorbing some of the runoff rainfall. So there's quite a bit of potential for additional planting, I think. One thing I don't quite understand is, it says in the report, or in the application, it says tree planting as per the Guy Taylor scheme. I've no idea what that means. So perhaps that should be clarified. And will the tree planting be maintained by the county council or by this council? In other words, we'd need a revenue budget for that if that was going to be the case. So I hope these questions can be asked. Oh, the final thing, a comment I suppose really, I do regret the competitive nature of this grant scheme. It's obviously a government scheme, but like all schemes of this kind, very competitive. So you don't necessarily know why your scheme has been rejected if it is rejected, but I hope it isn't.
Thank you, Councillor Burfoot. Steve.
Thank you, Councillor Burfoot, and thank you, Chairman. And it is a competitive scheme, and that, I suppose that goes back to your first point about can it be approved in part. Our understanding is that it can't be, which is why we're very keen that all elements of the scheme score as highly as they possibly can, and that's why we're working to improve the benefit-cost ratio, to use the term, on both projects, the Public Realm and the Highways project and the Community Hub project. So we want to make them both as strong as possible in terms of the bid. And Councillor Burfoot's raised some good points about street cleaning and maintenance and ongoing costs. I mean, part of this, the aim of this scheme is to make, for instance, the marketplace a more, level's not the word because it's on a slope, but less bumpy, I suppose is the right word, surface, which will not only be better to use for users, particularly those with mobility problems, but also easier to clean. Indeed, I was speaking to someone from the Clean and Green team this morning who feels strongly that not having essentially a lot of cracks will make it easier to clean. But just as reassurance for members, within the bid, we have made a small allowance for any increased costs that might result from the bid in terms of cleaning and repairs to some of the new street furniture and other issues like that. It's only a small amount, but following discussion with colleagues, we think it's an appropriate amount. What we haven't done though is include any sums for maintenance of trees. The District Council doesn't maintain trees or planters in urban areas, so that would need to fall to a partner. And I suppose that goes back to your earlier point that maintenance costs do need to be included in the bid where possible, but if you put too much in, that reduces the benefit cost ratio, so makes the bid unattractive and less likely to pass. So it's a balancing act, and I think we've got the balance as best we can, but we will see in October, November.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I thought Councillor Burfoot gave a very good appraisal and assessment and presented some of the anxieties, I think, too, that I felt like him and some others. I took part in the 2 workshops and presentations, and very good, indeed they were, very detailed. I was also very admiring, I suppose is the word, of the responses, detailed responses from the Ashbourne councillors that took part too. And they, or one of them, raised an extremely pertinent question, which actually, interestingly, relates to the public participation this evening. And it's this question of the pollution levels and how they are affecting customer footfall in the town. And one would have expected or hoped that this bid might go some way to supporting the remedial action that's needed there. So I think I would ask the question here is, was that expectation taken into account, or was it acknowledged that there is an existing problem about attracting a customer base? So it's not just about the physical infrastructure and enhancement that's required, but it's also about making the environment a healthy one for people to come into. My second question, incidentally, is one that I asked at the time, but I'll raise it again, is really to ask the question about the pipeline projects and to hope that they would include other towns and again the hope that they will have been raised with town clerks and other town councils, because I think it's would be beneficial for them and for the district if we could broaden out some of this levelling up fund submissions in the future, and not just concentrate on Ashbourne or Matlock, although at the moment we're giving them their priorities.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe, and apologies to Councillor Burfoot. Councillor Ratcliffe has sort of reiterated one of your questions, which I failed to answer, but you've given me the opportunity now. I mean, part of the purpose of this bid is to create if you like, a better pedestrian environment, a better environment for visitors, shoppers, residents, shopkeepers, as well as the other businesses in Ashbourne. And there's various means for doing that in the bid. One of them is creating that improved public realm, which we've already spoken about in the marketplace and Victoria Square and Millennium Square and Shrovetide Walk and some of the connecting areas as well. But also on the highways, there is important work that the County Council are proposing to do there, including more crossings, wider pavements, so that although this project won't get rid of the HGVs, it will hopefully at least make them a little more subdued in the townscape. So yes, more crossings which are highlighted with different paving as well, so it's very clear to everyone that they are pedestrian use, not necessarily just for the road users to drive over. In response to the issue about the air quality, I can tell the members that without giving any names away, the author of the Marsden report is indeed part of the bid team for the Levelling Up Fund. I mean, ultimately, the bypass is the solution. This doesn't deliver the bypass. It doesn't cure the problems. We can't pretend it does that. But if it can make things better in the short and medium term, and at the same time promote an environment which, fingers crossed, that when the bypass is eventually delivered, it will make Ashbourne a more resilient and better and healthier town for all, then I think it's well worth doing. In terms of the project pipeline, Councillor Ratcliffe, yes, you do make a good point. The immediate pipeline projects are perhaps those which are related to the Luff bid and indeed the Bakewell Road scheme in Matlock. So they are both Ashbourne and Matlock. But in the longer term, it's certainly right that we turn to other towns. And as I'm sure Councillor Ratcliffe might have guessed, I have a missed call today from the Town Clerk at Wirksworth Town Council, which I will be getting back to in that regard.
Can I thank you, Steve, for your answers? And if you allow me, Chair, just to make the final comment. I think we just need to get on with this now, because if it's successful, this will be a project to stand alongside the ABC market project that I know my wife helped to steer and support at the time. And I'd like to feel that I was playing a small role in the success of this funding, as it were.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Councillor Bull.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question, Steve, is obviously the fact I'm very pleased about this, and I really do hope this goes on and the likes. But the monies that have already been match funded, shall we say, is that not an issue to this going in as the levelling up fund bid? And secondly, if this doesn't come about that we win the bid, this money will still be there, and can they start getting on with the project as we're waiting for things to happen as well? Because I was led to believe out of a lot of the things, all right, money was not fully there for, shall we say, the Methodist area and the likes, and obviously the road changing from the county council. But at the end of the day, it's something that's been agreed to be done in some form or another, whether it be at the level of what this bid is trying to put out. But can you confirm that, you know, this can still go ahead, even at a lesser thing, if we're not successful with this bid?
Thanks, Councillor Bull, and through you, Chairman, match funding is indeed an important part of the bid, as Councillor Bull says, and it kind of goes back to the benefit cost ratio we were talking about earlier, in that the bid value, you need at least 10% of it to come through match funding, and through ourselves, through the county council, through the Methodist Church and others, we are there with that, so that is key. In terms of can the projects go ahead without levelling up funding, no. But can some elements of the package go ahead? I think we'd have to look at that. I'm sure there's some elements of it that could go ahead, but certainly not the whole package, and certainly not at the speed that is envisaged here. I mean, the levelling up fund is in a way accelerating delivery, so that there's a lot of things happening before March 2025 that otherwise would take a great deal longer than that. So, you know, if in the unfortunate event that we are unsuccessful with the bid, we will then have to look and see, well, what can be done when. But I don't want to promise members that it would be the whole package, because it certainly wouldn't be.
Thank you for that. Just looking at it in that way, where you said it won't be the whole package, my concern is possibly all about the public realm and the centre, with the traffic calming, the tree planting and the thing, because this is going to benefit, as it's already been said, about the pollution that we've got, and I really feel that by means of whatever should be carried on, irrespective, because of the benefits that will be gained, and it covers the air quality situation as well.
Just to give a little bit of reassurance on that, I can't speak for the County Council, however it is part of their capital programme that there is £250,000 worth, and that's part of our much funding here, that the County Council are put into the highways elements of this scheme. So that is one of the areas where some of it, I'm sure, would be able to carry on.
Thank you. Thank you,
Okay. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with colleagues. It's a well thought out bid, and I wish it every success. A number of detailed questions. I would say at the outset I very much agree with Councillor Ratcliffe's last question that it's a bit frustrating continuing to see reference to Matlock and Matlock in the pipeline bids. There are many other parts of the district which could benefit from the fund. Right, some questions. Is the opportunity being taken to include within the proposal for Ashbourne Town Centre to become a 20-mile-an-hour zone to make it even more attractive for pedestrians to move about? I know that there's a welcome provision for cycle stands, cycle parking in the proposal, but is there a proposal to complement that to make it safer for cyclists to cycle around the town centre through the provision of cycle lanes? Because cycle stands without being able to cycle around safely are not always terribly helpful. Can we have an assurance that the final designs will be audited by a disabled access expert, so we as a council ourselves, not relying on others, we are 100% certain that everything we do is going to be accessible for people with disabilities of any kind. And just a detail on the public spaces, will there be power sources installed within the public areas to avoid the need for external generators to be used for public events?
Thanks, Councillor O'Brien. And Chairman, I think it's no, yes, maybe yes. So in more detail, as far as I know, 20-mile-an-hour limits aren't included within that. That's something that we could take up with the County Council as Highways Authority if required, but it's not something that they have proposed. Cycling, yes, is accounted for in the bid. As you pointed out, there are cycle stands. There is a new cycle lane, and there are also e-bike charging facilities. In terms of disabled audit, we'll take that one back to the team, but I would say that accessibility is a key feature of the bid, and our partners and their contractors will be subject to the Equality Act, as are we. And power sources, yes, some, but I couldn't tell you how many.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to say what a wonderful bid it is, and you must have put together an excellent team to produce something of this quality. So congratulations, and I trust that it will be successful. I've just got one or two little points that I'd like to raise, which are mainly to do with the benefits, and they come out of the Equalities Impact Assessment. And I'm just wondering whether there is something you might be able to say as benefits on the strategic fit page arising from that. The first is about, in the Equalities Impact Assessment, a note is made that there are almost double the number of road traffic casualties compared to the rest of Derbyshire, presumably in Ashbourne, and which is quite significant and is also quite a worrying factor. Is there any way you can suggest that this scheme would reduce the number of road traffic accidents as a consequence? I mean, I think I can think of some really good ways it might, from the revised pedestrian crossings and the better separation of pedestrians and vehicular traffic. So you're well on the way to doing that. I just wanted to make maybe it would be worth making the link under health or somewhere like that on the strategic fit page to that particular issue that Ashbourne faces. The other is the distribution of population distribution by age, which is skewed towards the older age groups and away from the younger age groups. Is there anything in the plan that fits in with that skew, or would want to do to revise, to try and, I don't think you can even it out, but is there anything in the plan that fits in within different age groups, but also counts or would be consistent with that skew? I don't know. There's some thoughts. Anyway, just to...
Thanks, Councillor Hughes, and through you team, we are lucky to have a very good team working on this. They've been successful in other bids in the past, which gives us confidence that they'll do their best for us this time. And thanks for your suggestions about strategic fit. We've taken a note of that one, and indeed, improved health and reducing accidents. That's certainly an aim that could be brought out in the bid documents, and reducing road casualties in the way that you've described better than I can was one potential way of doing that. The population. Well, the population figures are 10 years out of date. The census figures were published yesterday, but only at district level, not broken down to smaller areas. But I suspect that the skewing to age won't have changed. If anything, it will have increased. And so one of the ways that the bid is helping to improve accessibility, which arguably is more of an issue for some older people as well as for people with mobility issues, is by ironing out, if you like, making the surface of the marketplace smoother. The proposal is to keep the cobbles, obviously, because they're attractive and they're listed, but by infilling them with more attractive mortar, making the whole thing look more consistent and more attractive, but B, make it a smoother surface, so for not just for wheelchair users, but also people walking on it, and indeed our Clean and Green team when they're cleaning it, more accessible all round. There's potential, Chairman, that some of the fact we've now got new event space that would come as a result of this, the multi-purpose hub in the Methodist Church, that could produce events that I would hope be of interest to all parts of the community. And one thing we are trying to do with this bid is to improve footfall, crudely, amongst residents, but also visitors, and visitors within the Derbyshire Dales would probably also fall within the, in some cases, the older age group categories. And so by enabling them to visit more, giving them reasons to visit, we hope that will improve access. By providing e-bike charging points, hopefully that makes cycling more accessible to people of all ages as well.
Councillor Donnelly.
Thank you, Chair. And Steve, reading through the report regarding the marketplace, you talk about the resurfacing. Now, my understanding was that I've read somewhere, or someone mentioned in a meeting recently, reconfiguration of the marketplace. So we're looking at the two different costs here, are we not?
Chairman, yes. So the public realm proposals for the marketplace involve both improving the surface and improving the public realm and, if you like, the street furniture, removing some of the clutter of signage, making it more accessible for events through electric points and other things, and for sitting out as well, and removing the parking. And that's something that's a key thing that members will note, and that's something where the local traders were consulted and indeed, perhaps surprisingly, came out very much in favour of it because it would improve the environment. So, part of it is resurfacing, but some of it is also making it, if you like, a venue for other events as well.
But delighted if that happens.
Councillor Wayne.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Capes, I'm very pleased that you took Councillor Archer's recommendation, because Ashbourne Reborn is an excellent and punchy title, and I think it'll go well. I've just got a couple of observations and then 3 questions, but basically I'm still concerned about the vehicles, heavy goods vehicles, seriously concerned about it, and I can't agree that by putting in traffic mitigation and stop getting vehicles, heavy goods vehicles, to stop in the town centre for pelican pedestrian crossings is going to in any way reduce the volume of noxious, the outfall from the vehicles, because they're going to be hanging around longer in the area, and that's likely to exacerbate the situation as it is. Have we got systems in place through Mr. Braund? Are we going to be putting, so we can benchmark what it is? We can benchmark it at the moment, but are we going to be able to monitor the increase? Because, and I think it will be an increase. I want it to be a decrease. I want County Council to get their act together and sort this bypass and get it through central government, because that's what's going to make Ashbourne a better place to live, work and visit. Most definitely, that is. So that's the first question in relation to the air quality. Can you give me an assurance that it is going to reduce? That's the first question. The second one is the on-costs, and it said on the actual report for the on-costs that there's a medium risk, but that'll be assessed if the plan goes through. But that to me is the tail wagging the dog. So have we no idea what those on-costs are going to be? Have we not made an evaluation before to find out what those on-costs are likely to be? And what could they be? You know, what things could it be? The issue that Councillor O'Brien very importantly raised in relation to disability accessibility, we did discuss that at the second consultation workshop, if you recall, and I think the partners took that away to have a look at. Sincerely hope they did. My final question is in relation to the actual surrounding areas. It's a bit like the top of Matlock here, and expecting people to walk down into town to shop. There's a large development going on at Derby Road, at the Airfield Industrial Estate. Now, what provision are we putting in place to get people out of their vehicles, not use their vehicles and get into town? I was disappointed at the second workshop when they didn't really have a response to that. We as an organisation that have got climate emergency as our most paramount goal should be ensuring that people are put on buses, or it's going to be a good cycle up Derby Road, whichever Derby Road, whether it's old or new, it's going to be a good cycle. So can you give an assurance that we will chase that up to make sure there's some provision to get people down there? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Wayne. On the issue of connectivity between the newly revitalised town and in the airfield area, and indeed the Waterside Retail Park area, I can assure Councillor Wayne that that is part of the pipeline work that we've commissioned to look at that. And one thing I have asked the consultants to look at is the proposals in line with the e-bike charging that we are putting in place, any proposals to enable cycling better as well as pedestrian access, because as you point out, it's a bit of a long hike up the hill. With regard to on-costs, yes, they have been evaluated and they do feature in the bid. So the bid, as I mentioned earlier, it does include a sum, commuted sum for the District Council in terms of replacement of new street furniture and new materials that might be provided, which are more expensive to replace and repair than our existing ones. So there's cost built in for that, and there's some cost built in for any additional cleaning that may result. For instance, if the Clean and Green team have to clean around more items of street furniture, it might involve manual cleaning, or if they have to empty more bins, that's a job for them as well. So they have been built in. The other key costs that have been built in are actually the project management costs for delivering the bid, so that we know that for the bid as a whole, but particularly for the public realm work, which would be for the District Council to procure and commission and deliver, the bid does include project management costs for that. Essentially, we would be recruiting an interim temporary project manager to lead that work, and all the other fees and charges that are associated with that sort of work are included within the bid as well. There's also a contingency sum built into the project costs as well as a provision for inflation. So, I mean, that's kind of why we've got professional cost consultants on board to help us with things like that, because I probably wouldn't have thought of that on my own, but they have. So that's on the way. I can't answer your question about NOx monitoring or HEVs. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues can.
Okay, Councillor Buttle.
Oh, right, yeah, thank you very much. I'm definitely going to be voting for this, but I've got a couple of questions and a couple of comments, if that's okay. I'm definitely missing the words active travel in this bid. There's no reason whatsoever to expect people to not be able to cycle from Ashbourne Airfield to this centre and back again without having to travel on the side of a road. We should be able to, and we should be planning to have dedicated cycleways for this. This is an important investment, and we should be making it future-proof and future-friendly. The highways plan, as far as I can tell, I was with Peter on this. I think a 20 mile per hour limit is something we should be thinking about and we should be applying for. We don't have HGVs in central London between, 9 and 6. I see no reason why we can't do the same in Ashbourne. Why are we having HGVs in the centre of the town in the day? That is something we should be looking at stopping. And when it comes to traffic calming, I think maybe we should look at it quite seriously, because we've got the issue of uncertain drivers drive more slowly. So we need to keep them guessing as to where they want to be, how they want to get there, what they want, what happens next. Keep it slow, keep them wondering what the hell's going to happen next. And so we need to start looking seriously about the traffic calming, apart from just sticking in some, like a few signs saying slow down or a crossroad. So if you put a Pelican crossing up, people are going to drive up to it. If it's not there, they're going to think, what's happening? What are these people doing? So that's my view, but I'm definitely going to be voting for it, and I think it's a great plan. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Buttle, and thank you for your words of assurance. With regard to active travel, there is a mobility hub incorporated within the scheme. So working with the County Council colleagues, we have managed to incorporate bike storage and e-bike charging and potentially cycle hire facilities in the community hub as well. That is situated as it is at the bottom of the Tissington Trail, if you like, a gateway into Ashbourne and a gateway out of Ashbourne. That seems like an ideal position to have that. And it's also proposed to have bus information there, because the Ashbourne bus station is just round the corner, really. So there's proposed to have a totem sign, is that the word, with some electronic bus information there too. So yeah, I think active travel and wider mobility hub type issues are very much built into this bid. The wider points about HGVs will raise with County Council colleagues.
Well, great, excellent. Pass it on to them. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Councillor Rose.
Thank you. Mine's more an observation, really, rather than questions. I love Ashbourne. I'm in Ashbourne most days shopping. At the moment, it's rather difficult to go more than 30 miles an hour. In fact, the traffic seems to be at a walking pace. But, that is something we need to be aware of. And at the end of the day, obviously, we need the bypass as well. But I would like to applaud the hard work of the Levelling Up team. And I'm sure this proposal will give Ashbourne a huge boost. It offers so much. Many people have helped and put in many hours of work. And I hope the government see the merits in helping to transform Ashbourne and improve its prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. Right, we'll move into debate. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move this item. For many years, Ashbourne Town Centre has needed an injection of investment and enthusiasm. Sadly, Ashbourne Town Centre has been in decline for several years. We're very fortunate in Ashbourne that we've got the town team, and I believe Anne Wright and her colleagues and other groups had been talking about what they could be done for improving the attractiveness to tourists and shoppers for Ashbourne. So when this when this opportunity of levelling up came, they'd actually developed some ideas. They were a long way short of any sort of a bid, but they'd actually thought about what the town was going to need. And it's good news that Ashbourne have got this forum that was talking about these sort of things. And I think that's the key. That's why Ashbourne are in this position now. I look forward to supporting Matlock or Wirksworth or a Bakewell bid in future. But as somebody's talking about pipelines, we need to start talking about what these localities want to develop. I know there's a tremendous amount of work gone in. I thank Steve and his team. We've had some great consultants on board as well, and they've got us to this situation. I hear what some of our colleagues are saying about saying this is an unfair situation where you've got towns bidding against one another. I just think the advantage Ashbourne had was the fact that they actually got some plans in the pipeline in their own mind. I don't think they knew where the monies were ever going to come from, but I'm a firm believer in competition. It focuses the mind and it produces quality bids. This is round one, because our bid is going up against hundreds of other bids probably from around the country. So if this process and this competition has improved our bid, we stand a better chance of winning. It's a template that we then can use going forward for any other bids that we're going to produce it when there's different offerings of funding going forward. The East Midlands, I've heard it said and read that we're the poor cousins to other parts of the country. The South East and other major cities have done quite well with funding over the years. It'd be fantastic, for Ashbourne to win this bid, and and sort of for the area and Derbyshire, to for once be getting its fair share. I'm also greatly encouraged by the business people that are buying up commercial properties in Ashbourne at the moment, who are looking to reopen shops, utilise offices and whatever, because ultimately it's going to take private money as well as this public money to actually put the life back into the centre of Ashbourne. I think we've got a fantastic bid here. I'm just greatly encouraged for the future for Ashbourne. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does that find a second? Councillor Ball.
Yes, thank you. Well, I echo everything that my colleague has just said. I would like to second the recommendations as sit on the paper, but on top of that I would like to say thank you to Steve and all the consultants that have worked, and Ashbourne Town team and the other groups that have put these ideas together, and for us members to be able to say that we've given Ashbourne the chance to go as far as we have so far. Let's do hope that we win it, and I think it will be beneficial for the whole of Derbyshire Dales and not just Ashbourne. Ashbourne will benefit, but as we've always said, unfortunately, Ashbourne's always been classed as a gateway to others. We lead on to Wirksworth, we lead on to Matlock. So hopefully it will all come good in the end. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ball. Does anyone else want to speak? Councillor Burfoot.
Just briefly, Chair, just to comment on what Councillor Butler said about asking for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in the town centre in Ashbourne. I think the council had to talk to Councillor Athwell, the Cabinet Member at the County Council for Environmental Services, because at the moment, as far as my wife Sue's County Council of Matlock is concerned, she's been campaigning for the 20-mile-an-hour zones for some months, if not the last couple of years. And what she's found out is that the county is only willing to fund I think it's two trial areas throughout the county. So it's going to be difficult to persuade them to add an extra one in Ashbourne amongst all the other towns that have requested them. So I think you need to get, whether it's worth the team that have produced this excellent application, whether it's worth them actually applying to the county or do it through Councillor Buller's County Councillor for Ashbourne. I'm not sure, but I think you need to get your skates on, so to speak, to get your bid in, because I think they've more or less chosen the trial areas already. But I suppose the more towns that campaign on this issue, the more likely it is perhaps to persuade the leading group at the County Council to adopt a policy of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits in all towns in Derbyshire.
Councillor O'Brien.
Chair, yes, I think it's wonderful that the whole council supports this bid. I think it's an exemplary way of working. I do, though, want to thank our Ashbourne members of the district council for the leadership and inspiration and innovation that they've certainly shown to me and to the rest of us. So, a sincere thanks to my colleagues from Ashbourne.
Thank you. Right, so that's been moved and seconded for Levelling Up Fund Round 2 bid submission to be approved. All those in favour? Thank you, that's unanimous. Item 7, Parish Council Reimbursable Expenditure Scheme. I think this is Karen, is it? Thank you.
It is, thank you, Chair. So this report deals with a request from Carver Parish Council for assistance in maintaining an open space. I haven't really got anything to add to the report, but I'd ask members to support the recommendation. Thank you.
Right, questions, councillors? Councillor Hughes.
Chair, I'd just like to declare that I'm a member of Matlock Parish Council, Town Council, and therefore I'm not sure whether I have any sort of interest to declare at this stage, but if this particular vote sets a precedent, then I would want to abstain, I think.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. 2 questions, if I may, Karen. Paragraph 1.5. When I was reading this, I had a feeling that there was an element of contradiction here, but I might be wrong. It could be considered unfair if a new scheme is approved for one particular parish council and could create a precedent for other parish councils to submit. But there haven't been any new schemes since 2008. Because then the question popped into my mind was, do we have a scheme here then that is rarely, if ever, used? What's the point of the scheme if we're not happy about parish councils submitting because they might be approved and given precedent? I mean, I don't know if you want to sort of comment on that to begin with.
So that was referring mainly to the review that was carried out by the Overview Committee in 2008. And what they decided then was that no new schemes should be allowed because of the financial constraints that we're under. So the schemes, the parishes that were then part of the scheme were allowed to continue. They continue with the grants that they then used to receive, and we've never inflated those. But since 2008, we've not allowed any new parish councils or new parcels of land to be added.
So, I mean, just correct me then on what you've just responded with. Are we saying that, in fact, we don't actually want Carver Parish Council to make a request? It's not just that the fact that we don't feel that this is appropriate, but we don't actually want them to make a request.
Well, we can't stop them from making a request. And the previous overview committee said that officers didn't have delegated authority, and such a request would have to come to a committee.
And I think he gave some very good, shall I say, financial appraisal of the reason why we should perhaps consider refusing. And I know we can't tell parish councils what to do in respect of their council tax, but given what you've said, I mean, did you suggest to them that they could think about raising their precept? And it still would be well, perhaps below many others.
I think they're well aware that they can raise the precept. I'm just checking the letter. I think they even make reference to it in the letter possibly, but they are aware they can raise the precept, and as I've said, unlike us, they're not subject to capping.
My final point is I think I probably know the answer to this, but I seem to remember recently it was suggested that parish councils could in fact apply to the local project fund. Is this a possibility here?
They can apply to the local project fund, but usually that's for specific projects rather than ongoing maintenance costs.
Any more questions? Councillor Bull.
Yeah, is this the first time that this Carver has actually taken upon themselves to cut the grass and the lights? If it's in there, then I've obviously misreading it properly. And if so, then how come it's only just come about at this time?
According to the letter, it's a new parcel of land that was previously Carver Cricket Club and that they acquired. And in my opinion, you would expect that on acquiring that land, they would have taken into account the maintenance costs.
Yeah. Can I come back? Yeah. So in that aspect then, I think what is recommended here is refusal, and maybe our policies need to be looked at or made clearer to the parishes and town councils that if they are doing this, put it work within their precept, because if every town council come back for extra because they say, oh, we've run out of money because we can't run the council to do whatever we need to do, we'll have nothing left here for to give anyway. So I think maybe a new policy needs to be looked at in some form, as well in advising these parish councils this situation.
They are aware that funds for this are limited. When we do the annual collection of parish precepts, there's a separate part of the form that asks for information about reimbursable expenditure, and the decisions from 2008 are replicated there, so they are aware of them. But it does allow them to make a request.
Thank you, Karen. Councillor Buttle.
Thank you very much. Karen, are there many other parishes where we do cut their grass?
You've put me on the spot now. I've not actually counted them, but off the top of my head, there's probably around about 25. So we have one scheme for grass cutting and another scheme for burial ground. Sorry, they're all grass cutting. One scheme for parks and open spaces and another for burial grounds. Some parishes apply to both.
Okay, great. So would it be, it's a reasonable thing for them to think we may do?
Yeah, as I say, it's on the form, so they're all aware that we do it, but equally they should be aware that we're not at the moment allowing any new ones, but we continue to support those that were in existence in 2008.
Do we cut any grass elsewhere in Carver already as well?
I'm just trying to open the system.
Sorry, I'm not in any rush.
Pull up the
Sorry
list.
about this.
It's just opening now. I was expecting this question, so just bear with me and I'll be able to find it.
I suspect Becky might know.
Not that I am aware of. If we do, it's just the road verges, but there's none of our actual land for open space there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I suspect that'll do. Thanks very much,
Right, I
Karen.
can let you
Cheers.
have that in writing.
Yeah, no, it's
the
fine.
list.
I get the feeling for it.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember if I put it in the report, but the schemes came about a long time ago where the council actually maintained the recreation grounds and the burials and cemeteries in the larger towns such as Matlock and Bakewell. And this was supposed to equalise it and give some support to the parishes in other areas. But then we were hit with the financial restraints, years ago, and that's why the scheme was cut back.
No, thank you very much. I'm just keen to be fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Councillor Burfoot.
Can you just ask briefly, going on from what Councillor Butler just said, if the council, or is it the county council, maintains the triangle area at the Carver Crossroads? I did have some dealings with that many years ago, my previous job, but I can't remember who we were liaising with about that, the maintenance of that area, whether it was this council or the county council or even the parish council.
Councillor Morley.
Are we in debate yet, Chair?
No, but we can be.
If we are, I would just
just hang on a minute. Councillor O'Brien.
I wanted to...
Okay, we'll go back to Councillor Morley.
It was simply that if we are in debate, I would applaud Carver Council for a good attempt and very creative and innovative, but I would move that we support the officer recommendation and do not support it, because I think we'll be opening a can of worms. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I would have moved that we accept that agree the application from Carver Parish Council. We've just voted to spend £15 million in Ashbourne. We've agreed to spend £1.4 million in Matlock. We've agreed to give hundreds of £1,000s in revenue support to Serco and Freedom Leisure. Carver Parish Council took the innovative step of rescuing this area when the cricket club ceased to function a couple of years ago. They're now seeking some support from the District Council, a one-off support for 1 year only of £1,300. Do you not think we're being rather miserly in saying we can't afford it? Yes, it might set a precedent, but so might agreeing to support a new cinema in Matlock. That might support a precedent for other communities coming forward saying, yes, we'd like to have an interesting new facility in our town. Are we going to say, sorry, you can't have one because we've already supported one in Matlock? Are we going to, did we say to Ashbourne, no, you can't put forward this proposal because it might set a precedent for other towns to come forward? I think we're being very, very, very miserly here in saying £1,300 to a small community in one of our more remote rural areas. No, that doesn't fit with our policy. You might create a precedent, go and raise the money, go and put up your precept by 25% and do it yourselves. Carver Parish Council have said, yes, from now on, we will have to sort out maintaining this new village green ourselves. They accept that. All they're asking for is support for £1,300 for 1 year. So I have to say, Councillor Morley's moved that we accept the recommendation. I hope that colleagues will see that on this occasion we should look to not support the recommendation, but to support an alternative and agree £1,300, recognise the benefit to a small village that could bring, and not worry about so-called precedent. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Atkin.
Yes, I'd like to second Councillor with the recommendation. I mean, it has to be said, you know, Carver Parish Council happens to be one of the more affluent villages in Derbyshire Dales, therefore they can afford to pay a little more on their precept. I mean, I don't know whether Karen could actually give us a ballpark figure on what the increase would be, because looking at the letter from Carver Parish Council, I think he's pressed a few funny buttons on his calculator. I don't agree with his findings. I wonder if Karen could clarify that for us.
Yes, I did calculate that. It's in the report. So at the moment, their Bandy council tax is £23.39. If they added £1,300, it would come out at £26.97.
I don't think that's a very large increase. So I'd urge Carver Parish Council next time it's at the precept to add it to it.
Councillor Furness.
Yes, I would agree with that statement, and I would definitely support the recommendation. Carver is an affluent area, and they can afford to do it. All they have to do is just add a bit more to the precept. In Bradwell, which is not so affluent as Carver, we've got 2 playing fields and 3 greens in the village, all of which the parish council supports. When he had to put up the precept, he did so. 1 year it went up 50%, and nobody complained. You know, so I don't know what they're moaning about. I mean, surely when if they put a bit of a precept in, which has just been calculated for you, nobody would complain if it's going to provide the facilities it will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just point out that whereas the council may not pay for grass cutting on other village greens, it actually does the grass cutting on some village greens, and in churchyards as well. So I'm not sure that a precedent hasn't already been set. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to come back with a couple of questions or clarification. I thought I heard my colleague, Councillor O'Brien, say that this was just for the period of 1 year. It was a one-off payment. I have to admit I didn't see that myself, but can you just confirm that that is correct? This is a one-off payment. This is not an ongoing maintenance revenue issue. And if it is only just the one-off payment, are there no other funds to which they might apply for this? Any form of discretionary payments to give them some support? Because I must admit, it does seem extremely mercenary, given the other sums that we've been discussing in one quarter and another. £1,000, as I say, it's the sort of thing that you'd expect can come within a local projects type of... So it's a one-off, is it? That's the first thing.
Yes, it is a one-off, and the financial risk assessment says there could be a risk that they might expect it to be an ongoing contribution, but the letter does say it's a one-off contribution.
And I say, are there no other funds that they could draw on this that could be recommended to us?
Well, they could use their precept, but if you want the district council to pay for it, it would need to come from the general reserve, so we would need to approve a supplementary estimate.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
Can I just ask if, the fact do we have cut-off points for councils to request monies for the precepts and the likes? And if that's the case, then obviously has this gone over the cut-off played anyway?
I don't know the timing of when they made the when they acquired the village green, but when we send the precept forms out, which include the request for the following financial year, I think we asked for them back by the end of January, but we request that, but they do have until the end of February to set their precepts and return the form.
Councillor Morley.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. It's the answer to Councillor Ratcliffe. It's an ideal application, an ideal subject for an application to Derbyshire Dales CVS, which I happen to be lucky enough to be an outside member on. So yes, there are other sources, and if that wasn't successful, then I'd be quite happy to help them with an Awards for All bid, which is a small lottery fund. So I don't want to appear to be the Grinch, but there are other sources.
Anyone else would like to speak? No? Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? That's carried. Thank you. Right, Air Quality Management Area, Ashbourne, updating report. Tim,
thank you, Chair. Well, as the report says, this is the fourth updating report, and members will hopefully remember back in April last year when the Air Quality Management Area was declared by this committee, that you asked for a quarterly report to come to this further meetings of this committee to update on progress towards the development of the action plan. In that resolution, you resolved that the Environmental Health Team would be delegated authority to develop that action plan. This report therefore provides you with an update on the actions taken in that work, rather than with a full copy of the draft action plan as it currently is. That is currently out to consultation with the working group, which hopefully members will remember consists of colleagues from the County Council from here, people from a person from Ashbourne Town Team, and an elected member from Ashbourne Town Council as well. We are seeking their comments on the actions proposed within that action plan, and we'll look to incorporate those wherever they are feasible. Mr Dobbs has, as usual, raised a number of good points about not particularly this report, but about the development of the action plan and the actions that will be successful, hopefully, in reducing air pollution in that area. And I suppose there are two ways of looking at it. One way of reducing levels of nitrogen dioxide in that area would be to reduce the levels that are produced in that area, which would be removing traffic from that area. And I think we all know that the most significant thing that can be done to make that happen is to redirect traffic by the development of a bypass. That's not going to happen, if we're honest, in the immediate foreseeable future, but is hopefully a long-term ambition for the town, because clearly it would have benefits in respect of air pollution and respect of many other things for the town. It would just make the town nicer. Other things that we can do are looking to limit traffic movements within that area at key times. We can look to make sure that the movement of traffic is as smooth as possible. Ideally, we would like to see some form of priority given to traffic using that road so that it's not stopping and starting all the time, thereby creating more pollution than would otherwise be the case. We can also look at trying to help pollution that's created in that area disperse from the area more quickly, and there are items proposed in the action plan that will do that. It was interesting to hear comments about tree cover in relation to Steve's report earlier, because one of the things we'll be looking to do is trying to reduce tree cover in certain areas because that helps keep pollution in. That's not to say we remove all trees, but we remove the remove the canopy where that's right to do so. So that's where we are with the action plan at the moment. It's still in development. I would very much hope, and I'm not going to guarantee, but I would very much hope that we would get a report to the next meeting of this committee after the summer holidays, which would present a final draft action plan for submission to DEFRA. That's the target to which officers are working, but we do rely on others in stating that, so I can't really guarantee it. That's all I wanted to add at this stage. I'm sure there'll be some questions and I'll do my best to answer them.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Bull.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, I, like obviously Mr Dobbs here, are a bit concerned to the slowness of how things are going. You know, we're a year on from when it was declared. We have had these and we are having the meetings of getting on, and I'm convinced that the last meeting that we had, there was the idea that you were going to be cutting back these trees, and I thought it was imminent as of then, not waiting around. That was something that was agreed within that plan to do, and it hasn't been done. And I think out of everything, we need action, positive. You know, it's all right putting plans in place, but I think when there was an agreement that that was the first protocol that we was going to do, why are we not got round to doing it already?
Well, to answer that one very directly, many of the trees are in private ownership and we haven't got the consent of the owner. So and Councillor Bull, you can probably imagine where some of that is. So you know the difficulties associated with that site. There are other trees there which are subject to protection, and Karen's been having those conversations with our own tree officer about how we can do that. I'm convinced it will happen. I would have liked to have given you a verbal update on exactly where we are with that, but unfortunately Karen is not available at the moment, and I can't. She's in isolation, as it were, so I can't actually get those answers for you, but can provide them after the meeting.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. I found Adrian Moll's diary interesting. I have to say that this diary is not quite fitting the same category. I noticed that the proposals for the action plan were submitted to and presumably agreed by Derbyshire County Council in public. So can you tell me why this council, whose action plan it actually is, don't appear to be trusted to have the action plan proposals attached to the draft here, and whether you don't think that, given that it's already been agreed by the county council, we should publish it ourselves at this stage?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The answer to that is because it's not what members asked for. Members asked for a quarterly updating report on progress towards the development of an action plan, which is what you've received. You didn't ask to receive various iterations of the action plan. The intention is that you'll be getting that for approval before it's submitted to DEFRA. In the end, you won't be approving it, and neither will I. DEFRA will be approving it or not. And that's something we do need to bear in mind. The County Council have published what Mr Dobbs has referred to as the Marsden report on their website, and that's available for sight. There's nothing secret about this action plan. It's out there with the public, and if members want to see it, I'm very happy to email it to them.
Councillor Burfoot.
Yes, I would like to see that if possible, Chair. I don't know why it wasn't. It probably should have been circulated to members of this council, actually, not just on a county council website that members could investigate if they wanted to. But shouldn't we be scrutinising that report as a council, as we've got responsibility for this? In fact, in our corporate plan, I can quote from it: taking appropriate mitigation measures on air pollution. It should be a priority, obviously, if it's in the corporate plan. So it is our responsibility. And I wonder what the ACLAP steering group is actually doing at the moment. Are they meeting regularly? Are they considering the implications of the recommendations in the Marsden report and trying to prioritise action? And obviously, like other members, I want to know when this action plan will be submitted to DEFRA. And hopefully we'll have sight of it before then. What will it include which will reduce NOx levels? I think Tim Braun has sort of outlined some of the measures, but obviously apart from a bypass, I think the actions that this council can take are probably limited, as that's probably going to be a decade or so away, judging by present developments or lack of them. Yes, I think it's disappointing really that we in fact, I'm looking at my notes from the February meeting when we discussed this, and it seems to be deja vu every time you look at your notes from a previous update on this issue, this serious issue in Ashbourne. So we're not really making the progress that I would have liked to have seen. But I can understand members being cynical about it or sceptical about the need for a bypass in solving most of the problems in the Ashbourne town centre in terms of pollution. But these other issues, these other solutions which have been put forward, surely should be broadcast to members and to local people in Ashbourne, especially the residents of Buxton Road, who obviously have been suffering for so long. And as obviously Tim just mentioned about the trees on Buxton Road, and if they're in private ownership, obviously there's not much we can do about it. But what I was talking about earlier was the need to screen people in the marketplace, or users of the marketplace, from the traffic that's going before it gets to the residential part of Buxton Road, when it goes past the users of the shops and the town hall and the marketplace itself. And then obviously further up Buxton Hill, Buxton Road Hill, it's more of a problem in terms of residential impact. So I don't know how that's going to be solved, I'm sure, but without a bypass.
Well, the bypass is obviously the ideal solution. Councillor Burford, the reason why you get a report in this form is because that's what members asked for. I say again, you didn't ask for reports developing iterations of the action plan. In fact, you delegated that authority to the environmental health team to work up. And that's why you've got the report in this form. I think it's important you remember that. It is the intention of officers to report the final draft action plan to a meeting of this committee so that can be approved for submission to DEFRA. And it was very firmly discussed at the April meeting last year that there wasn't going to be a committee of this council that would develop that action plan. It would be delegated to the officers who were expert in doing that. So without being harsh, I do need to remind you of that. The issue of trees is an interesting one. If we can't reduce traffic in the area significantly through the development of a bypass at this stage, then it's important that we do try and reduce congestion in that area as far as we can, and that we allow dispersion of any pollution that's created there. And I would caution against too many trees. It's difficult to define what too many means, but you get the point.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Tim, for an interesting report, if not perhaps what some members would wish to have. Oh dear. 18th of May 2021, inception meeting with DCC Highways agreed to creation of long list for action plan, followed by a long list of requests for lists and less requests for action plans, and I would say procrastination on behalf of Derbyshire County Council, leading to in March this year, 8th of March, emails to DCC to select a date for next meeting, internal meeting, pushed back a week. Oh dear. And then it goes on. So over a year to go from agreeing to produce a long list for an action plan to producing an action plan. And this seems to be, because the action is with Derbyshire County Council, this seems to be Derbyshire County Council's procrastination. And commiserations to you, Tim, for having to deal with such a reactive organisation as Derbyshire County Council. It was a disgrace, an absolute disgrace, that they are sitting on illegal pollution and cannot produce an action plan to tackle it and to get it through Cabinet and to get it into the public domain for consultation. Tim, my question to you is, what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again? What is in our control to make sure that this sort of procrastination and poor performance by Derbyshire County Council does not happen again? And can we write to Barry Lewis complaining about the performance of his council when he's faced with illegal pollution in one of his major towns? Thank you.
Okay, to come back on a couple of points there. Firstly, the technical guidance in relation to air quality management action plans suggests 18 months is a reasonable period to produce an action plan from declaration. So we aren't there yet. So it could be argued that the performance of the authorities in producing this action plan actually meets the expectations of DEFRA. So I need to tell you that because it's true. I'm led to believe that the creation of an action plan in other areas of the county has taken up to 6 years on some occasions. So I would ask you to put that in perspective. I don't think it's particularly productive for me as an officer to sit here and criticise the officers of another authority in this respect. And I will say that you previously asked for the leader of the council here to write to the leader of the county council about this issue, and I found that to be counterproductive. So I'm not saying don't do it, I'm just telling you things as they are.
Thank you, Tim. Okay.
Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, and thank you. An interesting comment, Tim, if you don't mind me saying too, because I was one of those that pressed Councillor Purdy to write, because I really did feel it was justified at the time, and it's somewhat disturbing to think that it was counterproductive, because I felt at the time that rather like this evening we had reached something of a level of frustration where we felt that really something had to be done, because all the time the residents in the particular localities where these levels are high, their health is suffering, and you know, I think we have an obligation and responsibility. I mean, I can't speak for the council, because I think we've done and followed everything that we should be doing, and as you have pointed out on a number of occasions, it is a very lengthy process, and you know, we are following things to the letter, as it were. But you know, we seem to be up against obstacles that are really not permitting any movement. So I can't speak for other members, but you know, I'd like to say sorry to the residents of Ashbourne who are involved in this. It must be terrible for them, and also the fact that you know the linchpin in this, as it were, which is this bypass, doesn't look to be an immediate prospect. In fact, one wonders whether it's ever going to come about, quite honestly. And I can see the Reborn project being well underway before that is truly considered as something that would add to you know, the effect that this levelling up project is going to have. So I don't know. I feel as frustrated as Mr. Dodds, who has been back to us many times and is asking very pertinent questions, as again Tim himself acknowledges, and we never seem, or we seem to be moving at a snail's pace. But anyway.
I think, to just expand, if I may, Chair, there is a draft action plan out for consultation. The County Council have produced what they consider to be 11 measures which were feasible. Number one of those is to continue working on the bypass, but clearly it would be foolish to just put that down and ignore everything else that might be able to be done, because it, as you say, it might never happen, or it might never happen in a reasonable timescale. So the other 10 measures within that that draft action plan are those that their professional officers considered would be effective in reducing pollution levels, not cutting it out completely, but reducing pollution levels in the area. And we're looking at those figures. What they do tell us is that there's a problem on Buxton Road and it needs to be addressed. So there's no disputing that. I'm just telling you that the live data is not 100% accurate to be read as such. The actions in the draft action plan are those that are best considered, those that are considered best able to reduce levels of pollution in that area by the professional officers. Now, conversations have been had with the working group, with the members on the working group about that, and they've been quite robust and challenging and need to be worked up into a final draft. It is my hope that that final draft will be able to be agreed by all those members on the working group to come back here in September for agreement and approval to go forward. However, I can't preempt those conversations, and neither do I want to limit the ability of those consultees, the Ashbourne Town team representative and the Ashbourne Town Council representative, to have their say and to argue for more, or for others to argue for less. I want to make sure that it is something that they're all happy with before bringing it here. But that is the intention, to bring it here for final approval before submission to DEFRA.
Can I just come back, Chair?
Very quickly.
Thank you. So I might have missed it, but did you say about the updates to residents on Buxton Road, Buxton Hill, sorry, and also did you mention about if somebody litigation, who is the responsible party? Thank you.
I couldn't answer about the litigation. You had to ask a lawyer. I suppose if we were dilatory in producing an action plan, that would be our responsibility. However, this council is not responsible for the vehicles on the road. That would be a legal view, and I couldn't give you a view on that because there isn't one, there isn't a precedent that I can think of where two authorities are involved. I know there's a London precedent, but only one authority was involved there. In relation to residents on the road, there isn't a liaison committee with all residents on the road, but they're all able to email the officers concerned, and those emails happen at irregular intervals, I suppose, when people are interested, when they want an update. So there isn't a monthly meeting or anything like that, Councillor Wayne, but there are updates available whenever people want them.
Councillor Rose.
Thank you. We're all agreed that we need the bypass, so the more pressure that we can put on the county council and central government, the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Thank you, Chair. This is an observation, really, comment. I understand the frustration of Councillor Hughes and others. I don't believe it's a deliberate policy of anybody at county to delay this, but I'll tell you, I've got drainage schemes, I've got road safety schemes, which have been the road safety schemes have been approved to make changes to roadways and whatever, and they're so far behind, it's untrue. It's a lack of resource. I'm not talking money, I'm talking about bodies, and it is so frustrating. Welcome to my world.
Thank you. Councillor Buttle.
Oh, thank you very much. I think I'm just going to come at this from a different direction. As far as I can tell, a large proportion of the nitrous oxides and what have you, the pollution on Buxton Hill, are caused by quarry lorries. And one of the things that's happening elsewhere in the dealing with pollution, which was with phosphates in rivers, where we are now having to stop builders developing places so that their sewerage will not go into our rivers. And so we're stopping development elsewhere in the country because of the amount of damage that's being done to our rivers. That's happening with phosphates, it's happening in Amber Valley, it's happening in High Peak. You never know, it might not happen in here, but we'll see. Perhaps the same principle can be taken to Ashbourne. We've got the quarry lorries, we've got, I think, is it 20 different quarries that access the A515 north of Ashbourne and are taking their stuff south. And each one of those is controlled by an extraction licence. Perhaps we should start looking at which quarries are producing how much traffic, and we should start making objections to their extraction licence continuity as and when it comes before planning at Derbyshire County Council, who deal with that type of I'm not sure what you call it, but maybe we could apply pressure through the employers of the quarry owners and through Derbyshire Dales's planning system to the Highways Department to get them to actually action this a little bit more swiftly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. There is an action proposed on the draft action plan to engage with the local mineral companies. It doesn't go quite as far as objections to planning applications. It could be the Peak Park as well, it's a Minerals Planning Authority. But there is engagement with the quarry operators as one of the actions there.
In that case, I'll just come straight back. Could we ask them to drop their lorries through Ashbourne in a smaller quantity of time, like between 3 and 7 in the morning and 10 and 5 in the morning or something? You know, just get them to become less of a problem.
Engagement takes many forms. I mean, there are a number of things proposed about trying to manage traffic through the town, including a live time app to sort of tell when there are problems with traffic queues in the town. And that will all form, as I understand it, that will all form part of the County Council's conversation with the quarry operators, mineral operators in the area. One of the questions that Mr. Dobbs asked was about evidence as how likely these things to work. And the honest answer is that there isn't evidence in the form that we would think in the common usage of that word. But proof of the pudding will be in the eating, and we will continue monitoring in the area. And if levels don't come down, then obviously we will know that more will need to be done.
Yeah, thank you very much. If we can identify the problem, it's going to be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Can I move that we accept this report? Is that what we're doing at this stage?
We're not actually in debate at the moment.
Well, can I say, I can move that we do that at any time, can't I, Tim?
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'm moving that we accept this report. But I would like, in accepting this report, I would like to draw attention to 2 options that were considered and have been rejected for policy reasons and for no other reason as far as I can see. And these are quick and easy things to do, and they would put one of them would put the onus on in fact both of them would put the onus on the owners of the vehicles to improve their vehicles rather than and give them a reason for improving their vehicles, as opposed to the council having to spend a lot of money on road improvement schemes or whatever else the approved actions do. The first is the imposition of a 20-mile-per-hour zone on the A515 or town-wide. Now, we all know that the faster you go, the more pollution a vehicle produces. It takes twice as much power, 4 times as much power to go twice as fast. Going from 20 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour increases the amount of power required by 2.25 times. That means that you're going to produce potentially around 2.25 times the amount of pollution. So one method that is used elsewhere in the country, and particularly on motorways, is to reduce, and in fact on the motorway going into Sheffield, is to reduce the speed of the traffic to reduce the pollution. So by reducing the speed of the traffic from nominal 30 miles an hour to 20 miles an hour, or probably more likely from 20 to 15 miles an hour, it is very likely that the whole problem could be brought in, the level of pollution would be brought down to legal levels. Now, the County Council, in its wisdom and its dislike of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, says the council guidance currently only prioritizing a sparing introduction of 20-miles-an-hour zones where they are primarily focused on tackling an evidenced casualty issue rather than for environmental reasons. Why? Why? Why is that policy? Why should that be policy? Surely the road casualties are only one sort of casualty. The other sort of casualties are the poor girl that died in London from air pollution from her asthma. And who's to say that that won't also happen in Ashbourne? Casualties happen in lots of different ways, and this form of casualty from people who suffer from Ashbourne, from asthma, is one such casualty that can be caused by traffic through pollution. So I ask that Tim, you go back to Derbyshire County Council and your working group and look at the numbers for associated with reduction in pollution from reducing speeds, and suggest that that one should be put in place, and even if it is an exception to the policy of not having 20-mile-an-hour limits except for road safety reasons. The second one is similar. It's local congestion charging, clean air charging zones. And the note here is clean air zone charging is not currently identified within the council strategies and intervention which demonstrates local ambition and support. Come on, come on. I'm sure if you said that that didn't get support from the people who are sitting outside the pub, which suffers from this 40 microgram of pollution, then I don't know. This is, again, it's something that can be done. It's an administrative problem, not a capital problem. It's something that can be done quickly and relatively straightforward way, and it can be, and the charging zone can be set to to enforce cleaner lorries and lower pollution. So I could suggest, Tim, that you go back to the county council and through the working group or whatever, and suggest that the 20-mile-an-hour zone and the local congestion charge should be put on the table, because these are low-hanging fruit that can be tackled immediately. They don't require any sort of budget. They don't require anything in the way except administration, and can be done straightforward. Now, we know that the county council doesn't like to introduce new measures. And if you want to have a pedestrian crossing put in or a pelican crossing, you have to wait months and months and months until the county council can put lots and lots of them into the newspaper all at the same time to reduce its advertising costs. Well, heck, people's lives are at stake here. The county council has a duty of care over the people of Ashbourne, and it needs to do something about it. It is not doing anything about it, and it needs to be told that it needs to be doing something about it. So, Tim, please go back and talk and mention this, tell them, dictate to them that they need to do these two actions. Thank you.
I'll come back very briefly on one of those points, which is just to ask Councillor Hughes to look carefully at the clean air zone stuff around Manchester Airport. Without getting into a debate with Councillor Hughes, I mean the clean air zone charging side of things. Have a look at what's happening at Manchester Airport. It's not something that can be done just like that, I would suggest.
Does Councillor Hughes' proposal find a seconder? Councillor Barefoot.
I won't add to what Councillor Hughes has said, but I do agree with what he says about the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. I think that's something that could be done fairly simply by the county council, although, as Councillor Murphy and my wife would say, it would take a long time to get it implemented, because she's been waiting for about 3 years for 20 traffic regulation orders to be implemented, as probably Councillor Murphy has found out as well. But there's nothing wrong with having it in our motion as a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bull.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Well, initially I put to say that I would just move this as a report and not go to the extent of what Councillor Hughes. I know what he's trying to say, but at the end of the day, whether you put a 20-mile or anything else, the tail to tail going up and down, they're not speeding through the town or anything else. They're just tail to tail. So it's a case of alleviating them from where they're coming through rather than what speed they're doing, because they're just there. It's a nightmare from going from one end of town to the other. The traffic is horrendous. You can take half an hour to get from top of Buxton Hill to the top of Park Road because of traffic. So it isn't all about speed or anything else like that. Tim, thank you. You've explained that, it's under our remit, but it's in the powers of those who need to be doing it. Yes, we are all frustrated. I'm frustrated for the people of Ashbourne just as much as everybody else here is as well. And not just Ashbourne, like I say, anywhere else has got these problems. We need to get it sorted. And I like the idea that we're kept in the loop, but I want to see some action. I want things to be done now, and not, you know, keep just putting things to paper and, oh, we've got to dot the T's, cross the T's and dot the I's, because nothing is happening, and what have you. And all right, you did say, you know, with an air quality, it takes about 18 months to put a plan. You've already got a rough draft plan, and there are things on there that could be started pretty quickly. And I just think we need some of the actions done sooner rather than later. And I quite agree that the bypass is nothing, but it's the smaller things. It's like we're saying about taking the tree canopy away and putting, you know, Councillor Burford's replied to them as trees. I think there's bushes and there are kinds of plants that aren't that cumbersome, that take away some of the pollutants that can be planted in bedding boxes and the likes, and that would take away some of that. And I think something of that nature needs. But I can't support the added bit as regards the recommendation. I'll just say the recommendation is, and I just want to see some action from what this draft action plan's all about. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. My thoughts echo many of David Hughes, which he put far more eloquently than I could. I just think we always need to bear in mind the reason why we're debating this, and that is there is an acknowledged level of atmospheric pollution in parts of Ashbourne, which is injurious to public health of our residents and our citizens, and it is, in practical terms, shortening their lives. So each month we delay, for all the reasons that the 21st was not a suitable date to have a meeting, so it was put off. Every time we delay, we are effectively causing more injurious harm to the health of our citizens. And someone's responsible for that, and we are responsible for that. I'm not interested in whose fault at the county council it is. It's our action plan, and we're responsible for it. So I want to put 3 amendments to David Hughes' proposal. The first is that we do formally express our acute concern at the continued delay in progressing with this action plan. Secondly, that a full progress report is made to the next meeting of this committee. I accept that there is a hope that there will be a draft action plan, but no guarantee that there will be. In the event if there isn't, I want there to be a full progress report at the next meeting, not a diary note, which is, well, it's a diary note. I want a full progress report. And thirdly, I would like the draft air quality action plan to be shared with all members of this council and made publicly available through the normal channels of communication of the district council. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Donnelly.
Chair, I accept the amendments to the motion. Do you, Martin? Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Donnelly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I agree with Sue that regarding the traffic and all the rest of it, but the thing is that reducing your speed to 10 mile an hour will make no difference whatsoever. The problem we've got in Ashbourne is congestion. The pollution is caused by the congestion. It's, you know, we've got lorries from 10, 15 quarries passing through every day. With the exception of a bypass, there's very little we can do. My thoughts on it would be to look at the transport system and look at the people that are running the transport system. Can we get something done with the fuel we're using, whatever we're using, not electric, whatever we need, some in that area, that would probably help in the long term, because let's face it, we're not going to bypass this week or the next 10 years. So that's my suggestion.
Councillor Wayne.
Thank you, Chair. I think if we just go along with just approving the content of the report, we're letting down the people of Ashbourne. What we need to be doing is showing that whether or not other councils may not have the desire, we have the desire, and we want to put in some amendments. I understand what you're saying about the 20 mile an hour, but from what Councillor Bull was saying, they're not going 20 mile an hour because it's tail to tail. You know, it's nose to tail. But at the end of the day, we need to be putting things in place to slow vehicles down and hopefully reduce the emissions. I'm supportive of Councillor O'Brien's amendment on the amendment, and I think that we should be looking at going along with having a more comprehensive report, because it's something that is very, very serious and it needs to be looked at properly. Thank you.
Yes, please.
So just to be clear, members, I think you've reached a natural conclusion of the debate on the proposal from Councillor Hughes, which has been amended by Councillor O'Brien and accepted by Councillor Hughes. So the original proposal was that the report be accepted and that 2 points be made directly to the County Council, I think was the point Councillor Hughes was making. First being the imposition of a 20 mile an hour speed limit on the A515 and across the town, and the second being the introduction of a local congestion charging zone as well in respect of a clean air zone. Then Councillor O'Brien's amendments related to the, I'm trying to read my scribble now, you'll have to bear with me. So the final part of it was the circulation of the draft air quality management action plan to all members of the council and making it publicly available. A full progress report to the next meeting of this committee. And I can't read my scribble for the first point, Councillor O'Brien, so I'll come back to you. I can read the back end of it, which is something in respect to the action plan, but it is literally scribble I've got in front of me, so I'll need your help. Sorry.
Yes, it was simply to express our acute concern at the continued delay in the production of the Air Quality Action Plan.
Thank you. So that's been moved and seconded, Chair, so if members want to go to the vote.
Okay, we'll go to the vote.
You do have a right of reply, yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Sue and Councillor Donnelly, I don't know. Tom. Yes, I understand what you're saying about the traffic being slow in Ashbourne and the issue being the congestion rather than perhaps the speed. But the introduction of speed limits does tend to reduce the speed a little bit, and it will there will be bits of the town where there won't be the expectation to go faster, so people won't accelerate quite as hard, perhaps. And it will vary according to the time of day. In terms of the congestion charge, sorry, the pollution charge, that should encourage the vehicle owners to improve the efficiency of their vehicles. It'll be a nudge anyway. I don't think it'll be the only factor that would do so, but it would be a nudge in the favour of reducing pollution. So that's why I felt the second. So I agree with you. But I think that's why I suggested the second option as well. So thank you.
Okay, we'll go to the vote on the amendment to this proposal.
Is it? No.
Chair, can we just have a clarification of what we are actually going to be proposed? Because I obviously, when Councillor O'Brien put this forward, Councillor Hughes said that he was taking away his proposal.
No, he didn't. No.
Sorry?
I was adding his points to mine.
Oh, right, sorry, beg me pardon. So then I did need clarification. Thank you.
Chair, so just to clarify, so it's to accept the report and to make representations to the County Council in respect of the introduction of a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit zone on the A515 and across the town, and the introduction of a local congestion charge in respect of a clean air zone for Ashbourne. And then Councillor O'Brien's amendment, which Councillor Hughes accepted, was to express concern at the delay in the production of the Air Quality Action Plan, a requirement for a full progress report to be made to the next meeting of this committee, and for the draft Air Quality Management Action Plan to be shared with all members of the Council and to be made publicly available.
Okay, so all those in favour? Against?
So they're not in favour of reducing
Okay, so that's fallen. So do we have a proposal?
Yes, Chair, I'll propose what's written in the report, that members note the actions taken in progressing the action plan process.
Councillor Donnelly? You second? Okay then. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Right, moving on. Annual Leisure Report 2021-22.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep this quite brief. When we outsourced the leisure centres back in August 2018, it was agreed that we'd bring an annual report to this committee. So the report highlights some of the successes from the previous financial year. Since the COVID, they're kind of back up to around 90%, just over participation levels to their pre-COVID levels, which is above average across Freedom Leisure's other contracts, which is very positive. Also, as part of the last year as well, we've worked closely with them and got £734,000 towards a decarbonisation project at Ashbourne Leisure Centre. So that's installing air source heat pumps and also 180 solar panel PV panels. And that's hoping to be completed by the end of the summer. Also, as part of the report, there was a surplus the last financial year of £28,910. However, that has included a lot of grants from start-up grants, COVID grants, and also grants from Sport England. As part of the contract, it would be a split 50-50, so any surplus that Freedom make, we'd split that 50-50. However, as part of the report, I've highlighted that due to the increased cost of gas and electricity, and also the cost of living in general, it's recommended that we allow Freedom to retain that money and carry it over to this financial year, the surplus, so the full £28,910, just to offset any potential deficit that will come with this financial year. I'm open to any questions.
Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. It's not particularly about the report, but it's the use of this 28,000. Fuel costs have gone up. Do we have an estimate of the amount that the deficit is going to be, or the increase in fuel costs for running the Freedom Leisure Centres?
Yeah, so they've got some predictions, and over the next year, across all 4 sites, you're looking at around £187,000. Yeah, increase. But again, that is just some predictions that they've done.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. There's a number of detailed questions on this report. First one is, can you tell us what the key performance indicator is for total visits for the year in question? Second question is, can you tell me what how the income and expenditure levels compare with what was in the accepted bid? Fourth is, can you tell me where the customer engagement plan is for the year in question? And lastly, can you tell me that if there is an in-year deficit, does the contract make provision for that to be shared between the council and the contractor?
So in regards to the KPI, are you after the performance in regards to participation figures for that?
Yes, for total visits.
Okay. Just bear with me, I just need to open up the document. Okay, so there are a number of KPIs that we work on with Freedom Leisure. So for the previous year, the target was 768,527 total number of visits, and they got 755,466 total number of visits to all 4 centres. In regards to the income against the bid, again, you have to bear with me because I don't have that document up. And I know you asked about the plan. I can send that over to all members if that helps.
Well, my question on the customer engagement plan is why isn't it referred to in the report? I mean, where is it actually?
I can send that around to all members. Obviously, the report doesn't include everything. It's just a highlight of some of the successes throughout the previous year.
Sorry, it isn't in the report either.
No, I can send the actual full document around to all members with the customer engagement plan. You'll have to. I'll come back to you with the costings compared to the bid because I don't have that document open at the minute. But again, it's something I can send around after this evening. Thank you.
On the question on the in-year deficit, this is in relation to not sharing the 28,000. If there's an in-year deficit, does the contract make provision for that to be shared?
No, it doesn't.
Councillor Wayne.
Thank you. I was fortunate enough earlier on in the year to go to swimming gala down at Arc Leisure in Matlock, and I raised a point with you about the pads, the swimming gala, Derbyshire Swimming Association said about the pads. Now, that's not mentioned here, but can you confirm, well, has that money come out of Freedom Leisure? Have they paid for that, please?
Yeah, so Freedom put in their own capital programme and have purchased...
sorry to interrupt you, it will be upgraded, and because that was going to be potentially a bar to hold in any more events there, so it's going to be done.
Yeah, so the pads have been upgraded already.
Fantastic, thank you.
Councillor Donnelly.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Becky, when I was reading through the satisfaction report, it's quite interesting figures. We're saying that Bakewell are 82% satisfied, and yet Ashbourne is 32% satisfied. Is there some reason for that? Have we foreseen Ashbourne or what? I don't know.
I think one of the main concerns with Ashbourne is the dry side changing facilities. They are very dated, but it does mention in the report we are investing in those in the next few months. Really, we've already started that process. So one of the main areas of concern from customers is this, the outdated facility, which is in the dry side.
Councillor Atkin.
Wasn't a question, but I'm happy to move the recommendations as set out in the report, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ratcliffe.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I know that this contract has been in place since 2018. I remember when we had the discussions about it, that one of the points that we put forward was that there should be regular engagement with the customer user groups, the client service users. At the time I was chair of the Works with Leisure Advisory Committee, and we used to have very strong customer engagement, as it were. The other thing, just to to note, of course, is that this is only the second report since 2018. So I'm hoping that this will now become an annual report. But I'd like to just feel that Freedom Leisure were making positive engagement with the user groups. I know, again, that there was a very strong one operating within Works with Leisure. My general experience of Matlock Arc is that it does have very strong customer satisfaction. One of the pleasing things, incidentally, within your report is the great success with swimming and the Learn to Swim. I know that there's a huge number of young children and they have mother and baby groups too operating there. And it's all credit to the staff that they employ there. They're absolutely dedicated and you know, all credit to them. So on the whole, despite maybe some blips with Ashbourne and possibly Bakewell, I think generally speaking the contract is going well. There were times a year or so ago when things were faltering, but that was not directly due to Freedom Leisure's management. It was more about the pressure of COVID, and we had to give some financial support there, but they seem to have recovered pretty well. I think the 28,000 that's being recommended from the surplus, I think, is justified on this occasion. I'd like to think that you know, that the service that is being offered by these 4 leisure centres is maintained and maintained to the standard that they seem to have reached, and you know, and let's hope it continues.
Thank you. Councillor Furness.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to second the recommendation. I think Freedom have done well for us over the past few years, despite all the difficulties, and it is right that we should forego this £14,000 to help them out now and in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Statham.
Thank you, Chair. I was going to second the recommendations, but it's already been done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to speak? Councillor O'Brien.
Chair, I have to say, in comparison with the report we received in 2020, this annual report from Freedom Leisure makes very, very, very thin reading. I'd recommend colleagues to have a look at the report. I think it was October 2020, to compare the standard of annual report we received then with the report we've got here. Most of this report appears to be compliments from customers rather than hard facts about the performance of the contract. I think we need to be mindful of the situation we got ourselves into with Serco over the management of that contract. We need to make sure that as a committee, it is us here who are responsible ultimately for the performance of this contract. And I do think we need to make sure we have a very close look at the way the contract is performing. And I have to say, I don't think the annual report as presented to us gives us necessarily that degree of confidence. For example, it doesn't include where income and expenditure levels are in comparison with our bid. Now, to me, that is something of absolute concern to me, that I would like to know, like the confidence that the financial performance is in line with what we're contracted to deliver. And the report doesn't give me that confidence because there's no mention of it. I understand the issues that Freedom Leisure have been through, but the fact remains that when you strip out, as Becky said, when you strip out all the grants that they've received, the turnover is only at 75% of what they anticipate it would be. And that sends at least an amber warning to me if that continues, only running at 75% of projected turnover. That rings some alarm bells for me for this year and successive years. So I would have liked some degree of confidence as to whether our officers feel that the situation is going to improve, such as we get back to where the contract should be. And that leads me on to my last point, that this sort of, I'll have to say, a rather strange request, I find, that we're asked to forego half the surplus income because there may be a deficit next year. And if someone suggests to me that there may be a deficit next year, I think I'd like to know a little bit more about that. And I also find it surprising, having been told a few moments ago that if there is an in-year deficit, the council has no liability for that. Why do we feel the need to put aside £14,000 for a deficit which we're not liable for? I have to say, again, I find it really strange that having refused to give Carver Parish Council £1,300 to look after their village green this year, we're quite happy to give £14,455 back to Freedom Leisure. Thank you, Chair.
Can I just comment on some of those points, please? Thank you, Chair. Myself, Karen and Ashley Watts have met on a monthly basis during the pandemic and since as well with Freedom Leisure, and we do get updates with how the comparison to bid. So each month we have an account of comparison to the bid, the income, expenditure, and where Freedom are at. So we're very comfortable with the position that we work with Freedom on that level. And I think one of the main issues around that you say 75% to their bid position, or whether they think they should be, is there was a pandemic of there was COVID, and I think they're still getting back to those pre-COVID levels at the minute, and there's a lot of uncertainty from customers as to whether they want to come back to the leisure centre just due to COVID. So they're just growing again now. They're getting back to that pre-pandemic position. Thank you.
Right, thank you, members. So that's been moved and seconded to note the report. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. That's carried. Thank you, members.